Welcome to Angelo's Tennis, and I want to talk about why learning how to hit a tennis ball is like the last thing to learn. In fact, most of the time you don't even, it's so easy to teach a forehand, a backhand is so easy once a player has fundamental skills down. And I want to show you in this video, I'm going to look at two different matches. The first match is a 4-5 against a 3-5. And the second match is what the video maker calls a 4-5 versus a 6.0. Now, me personally, I don't like tennis ratings. I fucking hate tennis ratings. I hate the USTA rating system. I shouldn't say that. It's misunderstood. I'll say that. And I definitely don't like UTR. But that's not what this video is about. So the first video is going to be, again, 3-5 against a 4-5. It's listed as that, and a 4-5 against a 6-0. And I'm going to show you through these videos what I'm talking about when I say that learning a tennis stroke or a forehand, backhand is the last thing that you're going to learn, and it's really, usually it's unnecessary. So this, by the way, is just a very this is just one video that I'm going to make in a series of videos. I can't, if you're watching these videos and you're kind of like wanting me to do something more or trying to put this all together, or if you're new here and you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You're not going to get this in just one video. I can't sit here and make a giant video to cover how to develop a tennis game in the best possible way. And that's what these other YouTubers do, and that's what people do in general. They try to condense like lots of stuff into this one video, and it looks good, it sounds good, but it doesn't work. So that's why my videos are going to be jumbled around, and if you watch a lot of them, you're going to be able to put the pieces together and maybe make some sense out of it and become, maybe you'll become a genius tennis coach like me / player like me. If not, I don't really care. You'll just go watch some other guy's bogus videos, and then you'll be like him, stuck at your level, losing tennis matches. So here we go. Let's get into it. I'm gonna switch here. Check out this first video. Okay, so here we are. Now, just ignore the score line. I just found this video on YouTube. I'm not gonna. You might even know who these guys are. You can watch our channel. The reason I chose this video is because it's like one of the first ones that came up. I saw 3-5, 4-5. I watched a little bit and said, this is going to give me the example that I need. This has nothing to do with the players. So I just want to say, personally, this is nothing to do with these players personally. So let's run the tape here. Turn the volume down. So the guy in the near court is said to be 4-5, and the guy in the far court is a 3-5. Now, as you're watching this guy play, the guy in the far court, his problem is not, any type of lesson like serve lesson, forehand lesson, backhand lesson. These are not his problem. So we'll start with the serve, since he's serving now. So here he goes with the serve, dumps it in the net. Let me turn the volume down again. So the reason why he's a 3-5, and the reason why his serve looks like that, it's nothing to do with his technique. See, my definition of technique, which I'm going to get into, is not the same definition of everyone else. But I'm going to use the word technique as everyone else uses. The technique that he's using, the way he's tossing the ball, bringing his arm back, all that stuff, absolutely meaningless here. This guy's problem is he doesn't have a developed, explosive, powerful, or you could just say developed throwing action. So let's look at his throwing action. See how he just kind of pushes it? That's not a throw. He's just kind of pushing the racket, leaning it forward. He's not throwing the racket. Now, it's possible that in a lesson, you could take this guy and say, you could isolate the serve by having him isolate the arm, have the arm back, toss it up, and then get him to throw into the ball more. And maybe his serve would be more like a 4-0 or 4-5, or like we're going to see. It looks like, I think that's Winston on the far court. It could look more, maybe it'd be more like Winston's, maybe not. Maybe it will be a little bit more powerful. But again, if he doesn't have internal speed, which I'm not going to use the scientific words for it, if he doesn't have the potential for speed with that throw, he can only do so much with that. So I just broke down to you that if he's willing to do what I suggested, and if he's able to pull it off, then he still might not even hit a serve like Winston, like a 4-5. Now maybe he has that potential and it's great and it does and it helps his game. So that's the basic explanation there. The serve. Let's look at it again. I don't need to look at anything else when it comes to that serve. If he can't do what I just described, if that doesn't work, then his serve, he's capped. He's capped at a 3-5. No lesson is going to help him improve. Now he might be able to improve. We might get into like his placement. We can work on that, but that's going to come down to really mental, like focusing on practicing hitting to a certain spot. And that maybe we can get into some technical stuff and like trying to get more consistent with hitting these spots. But as far as like increasing the speed, that's everything I said is what it's going to come down to. I'm not going to get into more into that at this point. So let's look at the forehand. Now here, he gets a serve and he gets a 3-5 return in a sense that the speed of the ball is more like a 3-5 guy that he's going to play. It's not coming back very hard. And he's able to hit this kind of what resembles a 4-5 forehand. But you'll see I'm just going to let this run. As this goes on, he's rarely going to be able to set up for that. Here comes an example here. So he has to do this like, he couldn't even get a real slice on it. He had to like punch it. And he's not going to have any control in that forehand unless he does that. Now there you can see on the serve, he does do that. There he kind of cocks it back more. And you can see that he does have a little bit of potential for that. But I'm already seeing that for him to really increase, even from there to increase that serve, again, we're talking, see that, his muscles there? I don't care where his elbow is and all that stuff. Like at this point, the next step would be he's got to increase his speed, his arm speed. And he's got to increase his just his throwing action in general. And there you could say, I can't help but say, you could say the toss and stuff like that. And we're getting into the toss. Can he consistently toss the ball in the right position so that he can get a good crack at the ball? I mean, if he can't, he's not coordinated enough. You got to work on it. It's a coordination problem. And that can be, of course, with younger people, that can be improved. At his age, I'm not sure. I think it can be improved. It depends on a lot of things. Depends on what he did when he was a kid, what he's doing now. Looks like it could be improved, but that's a coordination problem. And you have to do games and coordination exercises to improve that. So at this point, there's nothing technical. I could go more into the serve. There's still nothing technical that we're going to look at. It would be pointless for him to have lessons, technical lessons, and maybe you can see him here. He's just playing a lot of defense. I wouldn't even call it defense. It's more like hanging in there for dear life. And there he couldn't even get a racket on it, even though it was right by his racket. Now he's laughing. He's a good sport. He's having a good time. And that's when you're watching these videos. Hopefully that's how you're watching these. This is educational. I'm not trying to be a dick. You can see there he really didn't get a good crack on it. Like it's not gonna look like a 4-0, 4-5, 5-0 or a pro because he doesn't have the skills to do it. The internal skills. we're talking about in his brain that you learn through repetition of this, not repetition of a forehand or a feed off a feed. If the speed's right and the spin's right, he can play. He can look good, you know. And at times he breaks down and it's very erratic. You know, like there you saw him. He did do some, you know, he did some good things. And see, the less that he can think about it and the more he can play. The less he can think and the more he can play, his coordination is going to improve. His forehand and backhand will improve. The more he thinks about his technique, it's not going to work for this guy. He's not there yet. And as I said, I'm not sure that it really matters ever getting there, because the main problem is he's not in this situation enough to build confidence and to get. When I say coordination, we're talking about the ball coming. Let's get a good example here of the ball coming at him hard. There's a good example. See, there, in that situation, for some reason, he was able to get behind it and make a decent play on the ball. When I say the ball's coming at him, some coaches and players, they'll call it like reading the ball, his reading skills. And again, that's in the brain. It comes from practice. You can't, like his reaction speed. How sometimes they say, like, you know, when is he recognizing the ball? How early is he recognizing the ball? Is he recognizing it before like where it's going, what it looks like before it goes over the net, as it's going over the net, after it goes over the net? That can only be developed through play. You can see there's a good example of the speed was okay for him. He was able to get there, but then the spin, the action coming off the court, he couldn't deal with it because he's not used to seeing that. He's not used to seeing it enough to improve. So think about that. If you have a coach there, he would have to, in this situation here, the coach would have to play that exact ball, and that's literally impossible to do off a feed. Now he's learning. The more he does this, he can pick up on that spin, and that's going to be a difference. You know, one of the difference between a 4-5 and a 3-5. The 4-5 has learned, his brain has learned to play those balls because he's seen them before. He's practiced against them many, many times before, and that's probably why this guy would love to play with Winston, because he knows he's getting better. He knows he has the opportunity to get better. So I'm going to look at the next video here. Don't leave me just yet. Don't leave me just yet. You're still here. It's coming. I'm going to put this all together. So you can see there, he kind of lost control. Again, this is not, you know, the footwork. You say, oh, it's footwork. It's footwork. Yeah, well, in order for him to learn that, he's got to be in that same exact or very similar situation so that he can work it out for himself. So he can work out the timing. So he can work out the small steps, the reaction speed. Usually when I talk about the brain, it's an unconscious process. When I talk about the mind you might have a little control over. The brain, you do not. So there he is again. You can see, this is a good example here. Ball kind of gets up on him, and he's got to get dynamic. And you would say, well, keep your feet on the ground. Keep your feet on the ground. The reason his feet are coming off the ground is because that's his body trying to deal with what the ball's doing. That's what someone who doesn't have the skill does. They come off the ground in like maybe they come off the ground at the wrong time. Now, I'm not saying you never come off the ground, but in that case, he's coming off the ground at the wrong time. That's because he's trying to cope. He's not playing, he's trying to cope. We have the same guy, 4-5. I think that's Winston. He's on the far court. And we have Govind Nanda. I think he plays for UCLA. I've seen this guy play in person. I think I saw him in Tulsa a couple years ago. And we're going to pick on Winston now. Now he's the 4.5, and he's saying it's versus ATP 388. I think he called him 6.0. So we'll just call him, that's what the USTA lists as a world-class player, someone ranked in the top 500 or so. National level player, whatever you want to call it, 6.0. And we're going to see the breakdown in skill from a brain standpoint for the 4.5. And we won't see any breakdown whatsoever from Govind Nanda. So here's the serve. You can see he's comfortably, Govind Nanda, I don't know if that's his name, Nanda, Govind, oh, Govind's his first name. Govind, you're not going to see him break down. He'll play defense, but he's not going to break down. As they say, the technique, right? The technique won't break down. So there's the serve. He's still solid. He might make mistakes, but he's still solid. So at this point, Winston is not able to do anything to break him down, as we saw the 3.5 breakdown with Winston. And a good example, let me just say a good example of like where Govind, you might say, well, when is a 6.0 going to break down? Well, if you have like a John Isner serving, and depending on where his position is, even if he goes back to like as far back as he can go, and you have a guy like Karlovic or Isner serving, and they're just maybe the wind's carrying that way as well. It's not returnable. He might do a slice, he might do a chip, a punch, or a slice, just anything to get the racket on the ball, and it goes in. And then sometimes you see them guys do that, and the ball goes flying like really hard to the right or up in the air because their skill broke down. It's almost, in that case, and a lot of times it's reaching the human potential of even playing the ball, and that would be an example of someone who does have like the highest human potential of skill breaking down. You do see that off of guys' forehands, backhands, serves, returns. Depending on the environment, the court speed, and things like that. So we haven't seen really Winston break down yet, but we haven't seen Govind serve yet, and he's not really attacking on the return. He's just getting it back in. He's not really hitting hard at all, really. But you could say here, I'll say this, you could see, that's just starting off, and again, I'm not trying to pick on the guy. This is all in good fun. Here, you'll see guys run after that, and they'll either run after it, barely miss it, or they'll make it. And this is where you can see his skills breaking down from that standpoint. He's not even moving. He's not even moving to get that ball. That could be a reaction speed thing. It could just be fitness. But he's not even moving. Which tells me whatever Govind's doing there, it's hard to see on video. The speed, maybe the ball trajectory, etc. That's breaking down his skill level there. And that would be somewhere where a lot of 4.5s would break down. I played a 4.5 level, and I wouldn't break down there. But we're both the same. We're considered the same level. I mean, it makes sense out of that. I don't consider myself a 4.5, but I'm just saying, if I was playing 4.5, and someone would call me a 4.5. So here we go. We're still going. All right, we're going to get into some really good points here, and then we'll finish this up. There's another example, like 4.5 guys can do this, but you see him take that half volley off the run. That's a skill breakdown. You need to be able to play a half volley. You need to be able to do what he just did right there. You're not a 6-0. You're not a 5-0. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're not at 4-5. All right, he's serving. He's really being. This is not really a good example. Like I said, I just picked it out because I'm lazy. He's just controlling the points in order to stay, in order to win. There's a good example there. Perfect. There's a good example there. That right there gets his nice serve, and then he rips it. He rips it on the move, rips it cross court. And that's an example of skill breakdown. There's that same half volley. Maybe he could have got that, but I'm saying if he wants to improve, and we want to look at like the difference between that, like what was happening to the 3-5 guy, now it's happening to him. I'm not saying he could have made that. Maybe another try he would have made, but the example is, let's say that continuously happens. That's a skill breaking down. And he could practice. I want to keep coming back to this. He could practice that. Some 4-5s could practice that till they're blue in the face. It's not. They could do it. It's not going to work. They're never going to hit it. And other ones who have the potential their brain will learn through repeating that situation, and they'll get better. That's usually what prevents a 4-5 or a lower level player getting up to a level of a Govind. It's not so much. That's the easy stuff. What he's doing now, like learn how to hit kick serve and stuff. That's easy. The stuff that your brain has to learn, not your mind, it's hard. You can't make up for it. You think like born talent. What you did when you were a child during the crucial phases. So you're still going easy on him. And this is another little side thing when you're playing these. When you're playing guys that are usually better and they know they're a lot better, they don't play risky, so you get these 6-0 matches and stuff because they're not really taking the risk that they would against somebody else. They're not making mistakes. So there's another example here. We get to serve. It's a little bit of a kick, and you can see the breakdown. He still made it in, but I don't think he's really trying to like hit it like that. So that's the example of the skills breaking down again. And you can see sometimes it works in your favor, which goes back to my video about the idiot savant. We're all idiot savants at some point. It's all relative. That's just a word. That's just a phrase they came up with. There it is again. Some guys would have got a racket on that, or even moved. He just didn't even move. Some people, they say that to me. Like some guys will say like that I hit with the hit. They're like, "Why you didn't even move?" It's like, dude, I couldn't move. I couldn't, like, what was I gonna do? I couldn't react. It was the situation, the speed. It was all there. I was tired. Nothing I could do. There again, this one here, you could say, I'm not even going to comment. I don't know. Stay focused. Stay focused on what we're working on here. I see he's doing his little slice. I mean, he can play that back all day long. That's not anything out of his range of skill. You can just see Govind he's not gonna break down at all. Half volley or swing volleys from the baseline. Now, this Govind guy I don't think he's known for like having big shots, big power, but it's like say like a Kyrgios was on the court right now playing Winston. it wouldn't even if Kyrgios wanted to, and maybe Govin could do this too. But I don't. I mean, I don't think he doesn't have the style of like a Kyrgios. But let's say Kyrgios does. He's a really aggressive server, etc. I mean, Kyrgios could come on the court with his serve and even his return if he wanted, if he was feeling good, confident, and guy like Winston wouldn't even really Winston, but like a lot of guys, just in general, wouldn't even have a chance to play a forehand, or to even show their skill. I mean, their technique would be breaking down left and right. There would be no technique. It's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more hard to see here with this match. Again, I think he's going easy on him as well. He's not really popping any serves. So I'm going to leave it there. There's much more I could say about this. I hope I made my point. I'm not going to repeat it. And I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great night.